clout. Virtual stage, but the spotlight dim. Many clicking past, ain't feeling his hymn. Waiting for the moment, blow up like a piston. Haters gonna hate, but persistence gonna glisten. Hold tight, 20 turn 200 someday. Laugh in their face, shouting, who wants some pay? Uncle Papa Show.
What up, what up, what up, what up, what up, what up, what up? What up, Twitch? What up, Cosmic? Excuse me, what up, bots? What up, lurkers? What up, tiny people in my chatterino? It's your boy. I got a lap stampy at the moment. Wants little head scritches. Cosmic, if you like, because I can, I can find a board game for anything, right? Um, what up, Textillion? So if you like racing, hello. That's the wrong Firefox. There we go. This is called Heat Pedal to the Metal, and it's got like it's a racing game. I have 3 Firefox windows open in order to see the Twitch chat and the Twitch activity feed on my other monitor. What up, Larry? So, racing game, right? And you play with cards, and you got these little cars, and they go around the track. It's a lot of fun. It's real easy to learn, and if you get like the expansions, it can go up to like 7 or 8 players. Base game is 6 players. You can even play it on your own against like the like NPCs. There's a way to have the game control other cars, and there's slipstreaming and going into the corners, and everything matters, and it's like intense and strategic, but it's also just fun as shit. So if you're into racing, I can recommend Heat Pedal to the Metal. Available from a variety of different vendors, anywhere from $35 at Miniature Market up higher. And as these prices over here are in euros, I'm going to assume it's also available in like Europe, and therefore you should be able to get it in the UK. So it's rated 8.0 out of 10. I agree. It's good. Check it out if you're into racing. All right. So the only news that I have today is yesterday, in the course of doing stuff, I got a flat tire. My car is currently in the shop getting tire replaced. And I also have to drive someone somewhere. It is possible. What up, Matt? It is possible that today's evening stream will start later. Just so that you're all aware. Yeah, no, I mean, it is what it is, Larry. It is what it is. It could have been worse. It happened in an area. What up, Hydrant? Happened in an area where I was able to get to a parking lot. Um, you know, AAA, all that good stuff. But it's inconvenient as fuck. But if you don't see me at 5 o'clock, that's why. I'm telling you now. So, you know. Well, is that good or bad? Like, is that a commentary on my voice? Um, I there have been other people like who used to use my stream to put their children to sleep because my voice was apparently soothing to their children. So I'm gonna take it in a good way. All right, so that's the news that we have regarding real life in the stream, and let's get to the news. Now, fair enough. Fair enough. China's DeepSeek quietly releases upgraded R1 AI model, ramping up competition with OpenAI. Chinese startup DeepSeek, which caused shockwaves across markets this year, quietly released an upgraded version of its artificial intelligence reasoning model. I've considered it Cosmic actually like for on the YouTube of doing children's books, right? Reading children's books. One of my grandsons is out of state. Um, so I thought that that might be a way that, like, grandpa could read children's books. I just haven't figured out the logistics and got it done. The company did not make an official announcement, but the upgrade of DeepSeek R1 was released on AI model repository Hugging Face. DeepSeek rose to prominence this year after its free open source R1 reasoning model outperformed offerings from rivals, including Meta and OpenAI. To an extent, right? Like, don't overstate it was, don't overstate what it did. Um, the low cost and short time of development shocked global markets, sparking concerns that U.S. tech giants were overspending on infrastructure and wiping billions of dollars of value of major U.S. tech stocks like AI stalwart NVIDIA. These companies have since broadly recovered because this had little to do with the models and everything to do with the skittish nature of the stock market, right? They will they will run, they will bolt because nobody wants to be the last one holding the bag. Huh. You got enemies, Larry? Just as with was the case with DeepSeek's R1 debut, the upgraded model was also released with little fanfare. It's a reasoning model, which means the AI can execute more complicated tasks through a step by step logical thought process. The upgraded DeepSeek R1 model is just behind OpenAI's O4 Mini and O3 reasoning models on Live Code Bench. It's like the benchmarks models against different metrics. DeepSeek's latest upgrade is sharper on reasoning, stronger on math and code, and closing in on top tier models like Gemini and O3. The upgraded model has major improvements in inference and hallucination reduction. This version shows DeepSeek is not just catching up, it's competing. Hallucination, I don't know what hallucination. DeepSeek has become the poster child of how Chinese artificial intelligence is still developing despite U.S. attempts to restrict the country's access to chips and other technology. This month, Chinese technology giants Baidu and Tencent revealed how they were making their AI models more efficient to deal with U.S. semiconductor export cuts. Jensen Huang CEO of NVIDIA, which designs the GPUs, slammed U.S. export controls on Wednesday. The U.S. has based its policy on the assumption that China cannot make AI chips. That assumption was always questionable, and now it's clearly wrong. The question is not whether China will have AI, it already does, right? And Jensen, Jensen famously or infamously, when asked about China catching up, said that China has already caught up. Now, you can make the argument that Jensen is full of shit. Jensen just wants to sell more GPUs. Maybe he's saying that the export controls have no utility because he wants to sell more of the top of the line GPUs to China and he knows they'll buy them. You can make that argument. It could be true. There's a lot of evidence indicating the contrary, though, right? Like that the export controls truly do not matter. And also, I find the export controls laughable on their face, because we're still doing Cold War era protectionist tactics as opposed to trying to get our shit together for the future. You pick. You pick. You'll be back like before. I will fight the fight and win the war. The only truth is chat subbing to Globus, says the infamous, definitely infamous James from the internet. James, thank you for your sub. 29 months. Your support is appreciated. Wonderful. It matters. You matter. Thank you, homie. Thank you. Drum roll as we wait for the internet to catch up. You ever feel you gotta pull start the internet like an old lawnmower? From Brookings, the coming AI backlash will shape future regulation. It is a glorious time for the tech sector. Many of its top chief executive officers accompanied President Donald Trump on his recent trip to the Middle East and garnered multi-billion-dollar contracts for artificial intelligence, data centers, and other emerging technologies. Some of the sector's leading lights have been given top administration positions overseeing areas like AI, cryptocurrency, and space exploration. Excuse me. And these leaders don't just have greater access, they have fewer obstacles. Congress is considering legislation that would preempt state regulations on AI and stop enforcement for the next 10 years. Elon Musk's Doge team has gained. Anything can be derogatory if you say it with enough derogatory. Doge. Elon Musk's Doge team has gained extensive access to sensitive U.S. government data and is deploying AI and large language models across federal agencies. Trump had this is a little bit old, but I thought was important. This is from May 27th, so 3 days ago. It's ancient history. Trump has repealed former President Joe Biden AI executive order that imposed guardrails on AI applications within the federal government. But there is a coming AI backlash that could reverse many of these gains. In his 2023 Brookings Press book, Techlash, Who Makes the Rules in the Digital Gilded Age, Tom Wheeler predicted the combination of extraordinary tech innovation and highly concentrated wealth reminiscent of the early 20th century would usher in public demands for oversight and regulation to protect people from consumer harms, anti-competitive practices, and predatory behavior. So again, here is the thing. Here's the thing, baby. There can be a public backlash, and don't get me wrong, I will not advocate against a public backlash on anything, right? I think there needs to be more public backlash, a lot more. I can't remember who said it, and they were talking about the civil rights era, and I don't want to overly conflate the civil rights era with what AI, right? Like they are morally two different things. But when they were talking about that, I'm paraphrasing. You say the price of my love's not a price that you're willing to pay. Larry, the only truth is chat doming to Globus. I don't think you can dom to. I think you can sub to, but I don't think you can dom to. But I could be wrong. 9 months, sub baby. Got a sub baby. Thank you, Larry. I appreciate you as well. You have been a welcome part of this community. With the idea, it was that you can only appeal to the I get the morality. Again, I'm paraphrasing. You can only appeal to the morality of, the power structure if there's someone within. That's what I was thinking, Hydron. You can only appeal to the morality of the power structure if there's someone within the power structure who has morality, right? And I think that the recent passing of the big beautiful bill is really indicative of how people who give zero fucks about you can push through legislation strictly and again, I'm not advocating for the Democrats. I'm saying Democrats are slightly less bad than Republicans. But who is your public backlash going to appeal to? Right? Because legislation, right? If you want legislation comes from the government. That is how that works. There is no other legislation that exists. 10,000, 20,000, 10 million, 20 million people out in the street do not make legislation. They could potentially influence legislation, but there has to be someone at the government level who's willing to respond to the will of the people. So I feel like a lot of people who talk about this public backlash and how they, stuff that's going to rein in the tech industry, who's going to do it? And do they have the votes? Yeah, no, I mean, I'm not talking about writing legislation and ALEC and all that other shit. I'm talking about because the government can and has responded to the will of the people before. The aforementioned civil rights era, right, was filled with that. People got in the streets and they did marches and protests and everything else, and they did get changes done, right? Because there were people in the government who were willing to respond to them. Who is that in today's environment? And do they have the votes? Right? The fucking Hamilton musical. You don't have the votes. You don't have the votes. Right? Who's got the votes? This is a lot of times you'll hear some wackadoodle piece of legislation was introduced into Congress, right? To do something, right? Usually some far right, far, whatever kind of fucking shenanigans. And it doesn't fucking matter, right? Like, none of that, it doesn't matter if somebody introduces a piece of legislation. It's how likely is that piece of legislation actually to pass that matters. In the same way, I don't care about what Trump says, I care about what Trump does, right? Because what he says changes from moment to moment. What people introduce into Congress, it changes from moment to moment. Did he though? like like to one extent, yes, the Gulf of Mexico is now the Gulf of America. To a broader extent, to the 7.7 billion other people on the planet, it's still the Gulf of Mexico, bro. So it's like, did he actually do that? I hope you understand where I'm going with this. Since that book came out 2 years ago, the need for human guardrails has become even more apparent, notwithstanding claims of many tech titans that their sector requires little oversight. It is possible that AI can provide positives such as enhanced efficiency and productivity while still necessitating responsible regulation. When you look at public opinion polls, large numbers of Americans harbor major doubts about AI. What up, Sean? In a 2025 Heartland survey, 72% of US adults said they had concerns about AI. Okay. What kind of concerns, dude? Among other issues, they worried about privacy intrusion, already had with our data brokers and etc. Cybersecurity risks. Cybersecurity isn't sexy, and companies don't pay for it unless forced to. A lack of transparency. Welcome to America and the capitalist vision. And racial and gender biases emanating from AI algorithms, as opposed to the racial and gender biases that exist in the data sets for those AI algorithms. And why are there gender and racial biases in the data sets, homies? Why is that there? Baby, I just met you. This is crazy. Here's my number. Call me maybe. Thank you for the follow. Democrats do that too. We are now in favor of banning the assault rifles now that we aren't in power and there's zero chance this goes anywhere, but we hope it shut people up Act 2025. Yes, 100%. 100%, right? I really, there's a fine line between performative acts and generating awareness to hopefully create a groundswell of support, right? And I'm not saying that every person who enters in a piece of legislation is doing a performative act, right? It's going to vary. Each instance has to be taken on its own merits, right? I will say that. But you got to have an idea of what kind of support you're going to have. Like, here's the thing. Due to the chicanery that exists in New York, I got dropped from one. I didn't move. I didn't do anything. But I got dropped from one what you call it? What's the thing? For my House of Representatives. But one constituency, I can't remember the name. They come in numbers. You know what I'm talking about. Somebody help me out. I got dropped from one constituency and incorporated into another constituency. My representative is a fucking redistricting, right? Like the district. Thank you, Walking Stick Library and Joint Specialist. Thank you both. I got dropped from one district and incorporated into another district, right? Like they refigured them out due to populations and everything else, and that happens, right? But my representative is a hardcore Trumper, he doesn't do town halls. He does phone town halls where basically he speaks and no one else can talk. You can just listen. Um and he's like completely unresponsive to any kind of, I disagree with you on this, right? I wrote him a letter, an email. I wrote him an email when they were canceling. They used to have a thing where if you were low income, you could get like $30 a month for cell phone and $30 a month for um internet, right? Super cool. And that ended up running out. And his response to my email, which was, like, I understood what I was doing and I wasn't like haranguing, I was making logical arguments and everything else. And I even leveraged, the rural aspect of, like, not where specifically where I live, but the space around where I live, etc., etc. And, I assume what I got back was just a copy paste boilerplate with my name on it. And that's pretty much what it is. So, like, I can't influence my representative cuz he does not care. You know what I mean? I doubt he would care if I had like 10,000 people behind me. Especially the way that my district is drawn up. There's so much, of the red area, right? Like, I am in a 50-50. Well, at least old lobster, they can get stuff done. I don't know. Back to this freaking article. Doubts about emerging technologies span both Republican and Democratic voters, with the electorate showing less polarization on tech issues than is common in other policy areas. Well, yeah, because most people don't know shit about AI and are just afraid, right? The news says, AI is coming for your job. So we got to do something about the AI. Now we got to do something about the structure of society, and and why is everything that I live on tied to um tied to my work, right? My healthcare and my ability to have a house and eat food, right? No, we must stop the AI, because that's the solution, right? If we stop this one thing, then everything will be fine. Rather than falling along partisan lines, concerns about innovations are broadly shared, as both liberals and conservatives are increasingly hesitant to embrace certain new technologies until there is a demonstrated track record that they are safe, fair, and secure. No technology is safe, kids. No technology is safe. No technology is fair, right? Because of the distribution mechanisms that we function under, it's going to be unequally distributed. And secure, we covered that earlier when we talked about cybersecurity. Cybersecurity is not sexy. They only pay for it when they absolutely have to. It's not just the public expressing doubts. Leading scientists, including those employed or financed by tech companies, have documented many problematic features of AI. They've written white papers and policy reports detailing their concerns and expressing the need for regulations. All the way up to, like, the CEOs, Sam Altman, for all his issues, and he has many, excuse me, like, day one in that first meeting in front of Congress, he's like, we need regulation. Y'all need to do it because it needs to be a level playing field for all the companies involved. right? I know all companies hate regulation, but what they want, if they have to have regulation, is a regulation that's clear that everybody plays under, because at least then that's the environment, right? Cybersecurity fails. What the fuck are you guys even doing all day? Cybersecurity succeeds. What the fuck? Why do I even need you guys? 100%. 100%. What am I paying for? Nothing happened. That's what you're paying for. Major tech leaders have testified before Congress about how AI problems require oversight and regulation. Leaders such as OpenAI's Sam Altman called for AI regulation in a 2023 congressional hearing. Sitting before Congress again in May 2025, Altman reversed his stance, saying everything was fine in his sector and there was no need for regulation. There are many known and well documented problems. AI hallucinations, where algorithms generate imaginary facts, persist to varying degrees. But they do exist. I'm not denying that they exist. Rather than getting better as AI advances, the problem is actually spreading. I've got to see your reference here. From the New York Times. And of course, it's behind a paywall. What up, Abby? Moving on. As generative AI produces more false or misleading content, that material is increasingly being incorporated into LLMs and presented to users as factual information. Yeah, strangely enough, a lot of that initial false or misleading content that was presented to users as factual information was created by people, and often on Reddit. Data abuses are proliferating. What up, Reed? DOJ staffers have extraordinary access to government data with little oversight, raising widespread concerns about privacy intrusions carried out under the banner of fraud investigation. Waste, fraud, and abuse, right? Now, we all don't want waste, and we all don't want fraud, and we all don't want abuse. Is there waste in the government? Almost assuredly. Any large bureaucratic system that functions is probably got waste somewhere. Is there abuse? Technically, yes, right? Like even things like what is it, Medicare? It's either Medicare or like the food stamp system has an incredibly low rate of abuse, but it exists. And then there's fraud, right? And there is no fraud. Or there is no fraud we're actually going to investigate, right? But we have to put that in there and we sandwich it between waste and abuse in order to make a connection in the mind of the listener that there is waste, fraud, and abuse going on in the federal government. Rick Scott is very concerned about fraud. As people witness the abuse of AI in practice, what up, Carla? Fraud is usually on a level above the individual SNAP recipient. Yes, yes, and that's what why I had to clarify. There isn't fraud, or if there is any fraud, it's a very tiny amount, and it's probably falling more into that abuse category than a fraud category. But the real fraud, right? It's the same thing as do workers waste some time when they're on the clock and maybe get a couple extra cents or dollars here and there that they might not be entitled to under the current system, et cetera, et cetera? Probably, right? Probably. But is the real issue wage theft that's done by the companies that hire those people and cause them to work additional hours at no additional pay and all sorts of other shenanigans that jobs get up to, right? The fact that you want to talk about legalized wage theft, the fact that I don't get paid for my drive time, the fact that I don't get paid for the 10, 15 minutes I have to come in early because I have to be at my desk logged in at the time my shift starts, right? Like, and I can do math, bro. That's the real theft that's happening under these conditions. But this is investigated. This is not. What up, Resute? Yeah, I could see that being a thing. Yeah, the fraud is private businesses defrauding the government. Or what up, Farrah? Where you have cost overruns, right? Like, and it's not even like a surprise cost overrun at this point in time. Like the Pentagon and the military industrial complex and the fact that your new missile system that we said is going to cost, $1 billion to develop. Well, it cost another 500 million. We didn't expect it. And when you're developing stuff, shit does cost more money, right? Like you think you know how much it's going to cost and then it costs more. But it seems like they do that all the time. You know what I mean? It's very strange. What up, Potter Monkey? Is it? It's always been you have to punch in on time, which means you have to be 15 to 45 minutes early to get from parking to where you punch in and start. 100%. 100%. Dev software is frustrating to cost. It is, and that's why, like, it's one of those things where there's a truth, right? Which is that the development and innovation of any product is going to cost more than you think it will. It just will, right? You can only account for all the things you know about, right? Like Donald Rumsfeld, the one thing that he said which was correct is the known knowns, the known unknowns, and the unknown unknowns, right? When you're doing development, those are your goblins. You can price the known knowns. That's easy. You can estimate your known unknowns, right? It'll probably cost this and it'll probably take this long. It'll probably be there. But that unknown, right? The stuff that we don't know that we don't know. And then that sucker comes whipping around on you and shit. All of a sudden, it costs 33%, 50% more than what we thought it was going to. So, yeah. As people witness the abuse of AI in practice, backlash over its unbridled application quickly emerged. And here's another example, right? Was there a backlash over Doge's unbridled application of AI in what it was doing or is doing? Yes. What happened exactly? What actually occurred exactly? Everything got put on Elon Musk, right? And as James pointed out and predicted, that dude was going to be out by summer. And lo and behold, he is out right before summer. And the rest of the Doge stuff still happening, right? But it's quieter because Elon existed to absorb. If you played Magic the Gathering, right? Like this tank is going to absorb all the damage and then fuck off and leave all your weenies to go and run rampant all over the opposition. That's where we're at. Right? That was the purpose of Elon Musk. Was to make a lot of noise, be a big face.
Can you take hats in a dignified and sophisticated manner?
You mean like a weenie? Okay. May I take your hat, sir? May I take your hat, sir? May I...
All right, I've heard enough. You've got the job.
Right. When Elon's sitting there with two hats on his head at the fucking table with all the government folks, and Elon and Trump says, you know, that he's wearing two hats, and he's like, as you know, I wear many hats. Let that sink in. Jesus Christ. Doge and Elon Musk are now unpopular federal entities despite their short-lived presence. Musk's chainsaw, the chainsaw for democracy. Blah! Chainsaw approach to federal reform has already sparked widespread backlash and fueled Democratic gains in state and local elections. True. Here's the thing. We're at the beginning. What up, Iggy? We're at the beginning. Well, that's what Cosmic. That's what Elon got paid, right? Elon was willing to come in, be the bad guy, take all the slings and arrows, and in exchange, all the agencies that were out to regulate and investigate what he was doing, he got to gut them. That's the quid pro quo. That's the exchange. The Democrats are getting gains in state and local elections, which is great. Sure. 100%. I'm not talking about like, you know, whether you hate Democrats or Republicans. I'm talking about in the game of politics, right? We're talking about the game of politics and strategy and everything else. So right now, the Democrats are getting gains in state and local elections. But we're very early before the midterms and the presidential in the federal elections. So all this shit that's happening now and pissing people off will have died down to an extent by the time it's actually time to vote for people. Right? And all they have to do, the Republicans, is they don't even have to win those elections, right? If they just accomplish some goals of theirs, which it appears they are, then they are in a much better strategic position. And if they can do stuff in such a way that they can convince people that what they did is a benefit, well, now they have leverage, right? All the bad stuff has died down, and they can just focus on the good stuff that they did, right? Oh, look, you know, tax breaks. We did tax breaks. Everybody loves tax breaks. Just don't ask who got the tax breaks. We need a Game Genie too. We really do, Potterbucky. Is AI-generated budget cuts are expected to feature prominently in Democratic campaign ads in the year ahead. Cyber attacks are occurring regularly, including at major firms that tout top-tier security protections. Leading tech companies, as well as federal, state, and local agencies, have been breached, including Rhode Island, where a major hack may have exposed the confidential health data of hundreds of thousands of residents. Facial recognition, and there's an underlying issue here that by putting this in an article about AI means it's going to go like under the radar, right? You need, this is the issue of cybersecurity. Cybersecurity is the number one biggest issue that, you know, people talking about the internet and everything else should be talking about, right? You want to talk about where we need regulation? We need regulation in cybersecurity. There should be government mandated minimums. And there ain't. And there won't be. Yeah, and there's other ways around it too. Like one of the worst things that you can do, Resute, is become a salaried employee, right? If you become a salaried employee, you're probably going to work you know, you're going to work a lot and probably make as much money as you did. You just got to be good at math, right? Facial recognition software is widely known to have systematic racial biases with significantly lower accuracy rates for identifying non-white faces compared to white individuals. Yeah, I mean, again, we're talking about shoulds, Iggy, and I'm with you, right? Oh yeah, Cosmic. None of what I'm talking about here is unexpected. And people whose hair is on fire right now because of AI were obviously not paying attention over the court or are being, obtuse about what happened with the internet and what has been happening with cybersecurity. If you were paying attention to those two things, none of this should surprise you. Then you're probably not setting your hair on fire, Ponder Monkey. These issues extend beyond facial recognition as AI systems trained on incomplete or unrepresentative data often produce inaccurate outcomes or identifications. Right, because the history of, what up, Dojo? The history of the United States, where the majority of these data sets are generated from, is filled with, let's say, inaccurate outcomes and identifications. None of these issues will disappear simply because the current political leadership or big tech CEOs say they are not a concern. Ignoring widespread public doubts and documented abuses does not make the problems go away. Magic may be entertaining on stage, but disappearing acts don't work in real life. Oh, my sweet summer child. Did I not just tell you about the story of Elon Musk and the Doge? The long history of technological innovation shows that adoption depends in part on public trust and confidence. Does it? When people do not trust emerging technology, it slows adoption. True. And fuels calls for greater oversight and regulation. It can. It can. It absolutely can. But he's going to jump immediately to autonomous vehicles, and I would again turn back, right, to the internet. We have had opportunities to address issues, and we collectively, in the aggregate, chose not to. We chose differently. If autonomous vehicles harm people or facial recognition is biased, there will be widespread demand, for public accountability and oversight. Again, to whom? Who are you going to talk to? Having top leaders proclaim that algorithms are fair and don't discriminate doesn't eliminate the considerable evidence to the contrary. As AI abuses are documented and publicized, the political tides will turn and people will demand action. Great. That is a common reform cycle with many emerging technologies. And here's the thing. It's so much. Here's the thing. Someone could capitalize on that. Adam something recently did a video, and like all videos of a leftist direction bent, your More Perfect Unions, your Novara Medias, your Adam somethings, fucking Second Thought, they always end on this idea that what we need, right? This is what we have, and this is what we need. And I don't disagree. I sometimes disagree with some nuances of what they think we need and what I think we need. But what we need is only somewhat relevant, right? Because the other question is, what can we get and how can we get it? Now, someone right now could capitalize on various groundswells of unhappiness with parts of our system as it currently exists. What is someone actually going to do, and how effective can they be in doing it? At the very least, Ponder Monkey. Adam Conover. I mean, I didn't talk about this. I didn't bring this up at all. And I don't know what his mea culpa video on it was. But when I saw that Adam Conover of the Ed Zitron, Adam Conover of the two guys from the AI Snake Oil, Adam Conover of the AI is Evil, is out there shilling for WorldCoin. I was in awe. I was absolutely amazed. Because here unrelated to AI, Adam Conover made a video talking about why there is a housing crisis in the United States. And his solution, his call to action, was the one about the zoning, right? Like where the single family zoning shit is the thing that's screwing up the housing market or whatever, right? And this is some horseshit based on capitalist solutions to complex problems. But he came out there and said it. So who paid you for that one, Adam? If you're willing to take WorldCoin's money, who else's money did you take, Adam? How you doing, buddy? Yeah, and I like James's plan. I just don't know how you're going to execute that either. Like how you're going to actually get it done. But it's something along the lines of like 100% tax rate on every residence that you own after the first, right? Like or some shit like that, right? Have a real penalty for people owning more than one house, and that shit'll solve itself. It's a tariff. Tariff the houses. Tariff the shit out of the houses. Oh no, that's redlining, and redlining is terrible. It still exists today, in spite of what Ben Shapiro seems to think. But this is another thing about the fact that it prevents, like there's there is an idea that a way to reinvigorate the the local community, right, to create like a village life kind of thing, is where you have like businesses on the first floor and housing above that, right? And that way, like, people can walk to shop, the walkable cities, the 15-minute cities, all that kind of stuff. Is incorporated in that idea. And if you look back to when villages were more like self-sufficient in that sense, you had you had that kind of thing where like everything was close. People would live. Sometimes they would live above the shop that they worked in. That was a common thing. You would have a storefront or your local area, and then they would live above that, right? You live above where you work. You own the whole house, all that kind of shit. It would create hundreds of LLCs. No, none owned more than one house. New LLC for each purchase. A nightmare. Just ban corporate ownership of residential property. You could be right, Ponder Monkey. You could be right. And it wouldn't be hundreds. It would be like millions, right? General store workers lived in the second floor attached building. Yeah, that kind of thing, right? Like that was a thing that existed. I give up. I can't figure out how to prove that I have nose hair. Buy my crypto. Is it nose hair coin? Yeah. But even, let's say you're correct, Ponder Monkey. Let's just, I'll accept your definition, right? Because this is the thing. If I accept your definition, how do you ban corporate ownership of residential property? How would you actually do that? You know what I mean? Little shop with housing above got so profitable that the owner now rents it out and moved to the suburbs. True. And then you have the strip mall, right? You have the strip mall with rental properties above that, right? So the landlord owns that strip mall and all the properties above. Just too easy to use AI to generate a picture of me with nose hair, so we all need to be skeptical of pictures of people trying to prove they have nose hair. This is true. This is true. An LLC can't buy residential property. I have no idea. This is not my hill to die on. That may or may not be accurate. I don't know. I don't know. Oh, that's how you solve it. An LLC can't buy residential property. Sure, but how do you do that, right? You pick whatever kind of legislation you want, right? Pick everyone on the age of 18 is mandatorily assigned a house. You can do whatever you want. How do you get from where we are now to doing that? Right? And that's the question. That's the issue at hand. The number of people who seem to think that you can, hand wave electoralism and at the same time engage in the fruits of electoralism just boggles my mind. I get it. Electoralism sucks. Incremental changes suck. Takes fucking forever. We don't have time for a lot of the incremental changes that we need. Right? The planet's on fire. Everything's flooding. And sell the houses to who, Ben? Right? Like, I get that we need something soon, man. But how do you do one of those? Right? That's the question. Best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago, baby. I mean, that's one option, Textillion. But then, a bunch of poor, elderly, disabled, child, fucking people die, right? People on the margins die under those conditions. I would like to avoid that. You know what I mean? I appreciate you all. I'll be back at some time tonight. As I said, I might be late depending on how everything breaks down. I will be here as close to 5 as possible. We got plenty of videos to watch. I hope you enjoyed this experience. You've been great. I've been Globus. In the meantime, drink your water, eat some food, take your meds if you've forgotten. Always remember that Shaggy loves you. So do I. You just bring in the torch so you can see. I get it.